Welcome back to Tech Talks. My name is Joe, and I'm joined by Stephen King, Chief Innovation Officer at UNC Blue Sky Innovations. And today we're going to talk about blockchain. So, Stephen, first I want to start it off real simple. Can you just tell us a little bit about blockchain? What is it?
Well, it is one of those buzz terms that people love to talk about and not really know what they're talking about sometimes. So when we think of blockchain, we want to think about that it's a tool, right? And blockchain is a tool that has lots of implications and applications that we can use it for. At its most basic level, it's a ledger. It's a record-keeping system, but it's a distributed system. So instead of it being hosted on one server or one computer, it's now mirrored across lots of different places in a network. And so you change one, it will be seen across all the others. And so it makes it more difficult to hack, much more transparent, and you can actually see and share that information across a network of people.
You know, when you talk about blockchain and that interconnectivity of people, how will that help businesses to run in the future?
Well, I think businesses will see lots of different ways of using blockchain that we just haven't realized yet. So there are several examples with crypto and other things that we see constantly today. But as we think about small businesses, for example, they will have new ways of doing it that might have to do with supply chain or being able to help them be more efficient, being able to help them engage with all of their different suppliers across the world. And so blockchain can help in a lot of those ways. And it really will depend on those individual businesses and what they need to be able to leverage this new tool.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. And another one of those buzzwords that you mentioned was crypto. And so I'd love to hear a little bit about, the long-term sustainability that you see of crypto, and specifically, another one of those buzzwords is Bitcoin. Bitcoin was like the first that came out. So I'd love to hear a little bit of your opinion on Bitcoin, crypto, where you think the future of that is going.
So, I do love investing in emerging technologies and thinking about it, but I'll tell you, I have never invested anything in crypto. And so even though I do like to take risks in innovation on my own personal finances, it didn't make a lot of sense. So let me tell you why I see it that way. One is I felt that it was early on. There was a lot of people talking about it, but not a lot happening. The people who were most excited about it were the people who were set up to make the most money from it, because essentially the more people that got on the platform, the more their value would be. So a lot of people did make a lot of money on it. We saw some fraud and some issues with a couple different firms recently. And so that was a part of it, and kind of you had this potential. And I'm not saying that all crypto is fraudulent and there's going to be problems, but there was a significant risk that I wasn't willing to take. So as I look to the future, there may be one crypto, Bitcoin or Ethereum or whichever one you want to look at. One of them may kind of take the lead and be one. I think what's really dependent is, will users use it for daily transactions? Will it become the PayPal? Will it become something that people are constantly using to make lots of transactions? Then that would actually have more value because essentially you're generating value. But I look at, Warren Buffett, who I, see as a financial advisor, not my personal one, but, I looked at some of his methods, and he says that, he would never invest in that and he's not going to. And so I think for me, that's not a choice that I have made as well.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. And I think, as we look to the future of crypto and things surrounding blockchain, another one of those things that we talk about is NFTs. Mm-hmm. And so I'd love to hear a little bit about your opinion on NFTs, if you see any utility from them in the future, and how they'll, specifically one thing I'm interested in is how they're going to have value. And so where do you see that coming, and where do you see the future of that?
Yeah. So some brands have made some really interesting NFTs. You've had some individuals, some great digital art that have been sold as NFTs. You've seen values skyrocket, and then you've seen values tank. Okay, and so I think we're in a speculative time for that. So let's look a little bit farther in the future. Like, what do we think NFTs are going to be? I think NFTs are going to be really valuable when they actually tie to something in the real world. So when we tie it to a ticket or to a piece of physical art to ensure and maintain that this is the actual one, and you have a digital version that goes along with the physical version, and those are sold in tandem. I think those types of NFTs are really going to continue to have value because they ultimately have a backing of a standard, right? But for these like exclusively digital NFTs, there will be a market for it. I think there always will be a market for that kind of exclusivity. But across the mass majority, I can say I want those types of digital sneakers, and I can just make a copy that's very, very similar and get away with it. And to me, that doesn't matter in my metaverse experience. And so for most people, I don't think those are really going to play out like a lot of people are predicting. But I've been wrong in the past, and I could continue to be wrong. I've made a few NFTs and I've bought a few just for the experience and kind of learning about it, but it's not something I'm investing in.
But one thing, as the sports marketing innovation fellow here at the lab, I wrote an article back in the fall about NFTs and their potential in ticketing. I'm curious if you see any future there or maybe somewhere else in sports that maybe I haven't thought of.
Well, I learned a lot just from reading your article, so all of you should go read it as well. One of the things I think that we'll see is the ability to say, I was at this particular event, this Super Bowl, and I have this ticket, and so therefore there's this digital NFT that comes and says, I was there. And I see great value in that. I actually think that might end up selling more in the future than the actual ticket itself. So if you think about the ticket value, might have had a $100 seat value, but the NFT, because it was the Super Bowl and some amazing thing happened at that particular moment in time, the people might want that, right? And so I could see that value growing greater than the original ticket value did.
And then I guess the last question I wanted to ask is a little bit closer to home. Where do you see the future of blockchain in the lab? Do you think that there's a space that we'll get involved in here, or some way that it'll help the business run, or where do you feel like blockchain could insert itself inside the lab?
Yeah. So we're always looking to work with companies that have a real problem. And we don't just start with a technology and bring it to you as a solution, right? So we look for companies with problems. And so if someone comes to us and we say, oh, blockchain will solve that problem, we absolutely would do that. We've experimented with, and we've had a few developers build some stuff and things and done some NFT stuff with it, but nothing that we've done significantly. But as I look for the future of blockchain, I think you're going to see is somebody's going to come up with a really interesting use case that hasn't been solved yet, and blockchain will be that solution. So small businesses, large businesses, they're going to find ways to do this, and blockchain's another tool that we have. I think 5 to 10 years from now, we won't actually talk about blockchain. We'll just talk about the products that have come from blockchain, and it will just be the underlying system that supports so many different operations and supply chain and finance and all of these different back-end office types things that the end consumer is really not even going to be talking about blockchain.
Thanks, Stephen, for talking to me about this, and thank you guys for watching. Make sure to follow all of our social media accounts to stay updated on future Tech Talks and all the information going on at the lab.